In the West, if you are walking down the street and you spot a coin gleaming on the pavement, or perhaps a folded banknote resting near the curb, it is considered your lucky day. You pick it up, you wipe the dirt off, you put it in your pocket with a smile, thinking the universe has given you a small gift. But in Taiwan, finding money on the street is rarely a gift. And if that money is wrapped in red paper, it is not luck. It is a trap. In the shadowed corners of traditional Chinese folklore, there's a practice born from grief and desperation. It is called Minghun, spirit marriage. You see, in the old traditions, a woman who dies unmarried has no place in her family's ancestral hall. Her spirit cannot be worshipped. She becomes a hungry ghost, wandering, lonely, and eventually vengeful. To prevent this, her family must find her a husband, even if she is already dead. So, they take a lock of her hair, they take her fingernail clippings, they take a photo of her corpse, or perhaps a picture from when she was alive. They wrap these items in a red envelope, an ang pao, along with a significant amount of cash, and then they place it on the street, and they wait. They wait in the shadows. They wait for a stranger, someone young, someone male, someone unsuspecting, to reach down and touch it. Touch it, because the moment your skin touches that red paper, the contract is sealed. You haven't just found money, you have accepted a bride. Welcome tonight. We are not just telling ghost stories. We are giving you a survival guide for the supernatural. If you want to know the rules that keep you alive in the dark, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell. You never know when you might need the warning. From the humid, bustling streets of Taichung, Taiwan, it happened to a man we will call David. David was an expat, an English teacher from Chicago who had moved to Taiwan for the adventure, the food, and the culture. He had lived there for 2 years. He thought he knew the island. He knew how to order stinky tofu. He knew how to navigate the chaotic scooter traffic, and he knew enough Mandarin to get by. But he didn't know the deep rules. David was a skeptic. He watched the locals setting out tables of food for the ghosts, chicken, beer, fruit, and he found it charming, but superstitious. He didn't fear the dark. He didn't fear the taboos. He whistled at night. He pointed at the full moon. He did everything the locals told him not to do. One Tuesday night, David was walking home from a late shift at his cram school. It was just past 11 p.m. The humidity was oppressive, a wet blanket that made his shirt stick to his back. The alleyway leading to his apartment was quiet, illuminated only by the buzzing, flickering yellow of a street lamp. The street was empty. No scooters, no stray dogs, just the sound of his own footsteps echoing against the concrete walls. That's when he saw it. Sitting perfectly in the center of the sidewalk, illuminated by the street lamp like a prize in a video game, was a red envelope. It was pristine, bright crimson with gold lettering. It looked thick, as if it were stuffed with bills. Now David knew what Ang Pao were. He had received them from his boss during Lunar New Year. They meant good fortune. They meant prosperity. He stopped walking and looked around. The alley was deserted. The windows of the apartments above were dark. Greed is a funny thing. It overrides instinct. David's instinct told him it was strange for an envelope to be so clean on such a dirty street. But his greed told him that someone had dropped their bonus. Maybe 5,000 NT dollars, maybe 10. He stepped closer. He bent down. The air seemed to grow colder around him, despite the summer heat. "Don't do it, David." He reached out. His fingers brushed the textured paper. It felt expensive. He gripped it and lifted it off the ground. It was heavy, heavier than paper money should be. David smiled, thinking he had just made a few $1,000s. He went to slide his thumb under the flap to open it. He wanted to count his winnings, but as he pressed the envelope, he felt something hard inside. Not coins. It felt organic, like a dried bone. And beneath that, something soft and fibrous, like a bundle of thread or hair. A cold shiver, completely unrelated to the heat of the night, shot down his spine. Click. The sound of a lighter. David froze. He spun around. Emerging from the shadows of a parked van, not 10 feet away, were 3 people. An older man, an older woman, and a younger man. They were not ghosts. They were flesh and blood, but they were dressed in traditional mourning clothes, rough white hemp fabric that glowed eerily in the street lamp's light. They weren't crying. They were smiling. The older woman stepped forward. Her eyes were fixed on the red envelope in David's hand. She bowed her head slowly, a gesture of deep respect, and said a phrase that David didn't understand at first. "Gangshi, Guy, congratulations, son-in-law." David's stomach dropped. "No," he stammered in broken Mandarin. "No, I found this. You dropped it." He tried to extend his hand, tried to offer the envelope back to them. He wanted to drop it, but his fingers felt stiff, as if the paper was glued to his skin. The father stepped forward. He held up a framed photograph. It was a black and white portrait of a young woman. She was beautiful, perhaps 20 years old, but her expression was blank. Her eyes seemed to stare right through David. A black ribbon was draped across the corner of the frame. "She likes you," the mother said, her voice trembling with a mix of joy and madness. "We watched you walk by. We asked her spirit. She didn't want the others. She waited for you." David realized with horror that they had been hiding. They had been watching people walk past the envelope, waiting for their daughter's ghost to choose her victim. "I don't want this," David said, his voice rising in panic. He threw the envelope on the wet ground. It made a wet slap sound. "Take it back." He turned and ran. He didn't look back. He sprinted through the humid alleyways, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He expected to hear footsteps chasing him, but he heard something worse. He heard the mother laughing, a shrill happy sound echoing off the concrete walls. "See you soon, son-in-law." David burst into his apartment building, took the stairs 2 at a time, and slammed his door shut. He locked the deadbolt. He engaged the chain. He backed away into his living room, panting, sweating, terrified. He went to the kitchen sink and scrubbed his hands. He scrubbed them with dish soap until the skin was raw and red. He wanted to wash off the feeling of that envelope, the feeling of the hair inside. Eventually, the adrenaline faded. He told himself he was being silly. It was just a prank or a scam, just some crazy locals trying to scare the foreigner. He turned off the lights and went to bed. But you cannot wash off a contract with soap and water. David fell into a restless sleep. And then the dream came. He was standing in a traditional Chinese house. The room was lit by red candles. There was a banquet table set for a wedding, but the food was cold, rotten, covered in flies. Across the table sat the young woman from the photograph. She wasn't black and white anymore. She was wearing a traditional red wedding kipao. Her skin was pale, glowing like moonlight. Her lips were painted a dark, blood red. She stood up and walked toward him. She didn't walk. She glided. Her feet didn't touch the floor. She leaned close to his ear, and he could feel the ice-cold radiation of her presence. She whispered, "Why did you throw me away, husband?" David woke up screaming. He sat up in bed, his sheets soaked in sweat. He checked his phone. 3 a.m., the witching hour. He tried to calm his breathing. He reached for the glass of water on his nightstand, but as his hand fumbled in the darkness, it touched something. Paper. There, resting on his pillow, right next to his head, was the red envelope, the same one. The dirt from the street was still smeared on the corner. David lived on the 4th floor. His door was double locked. His windows were barred. There was no way anyone could have entered his apartment, except the invitation had already been accepted. The next morning, David didn't go to work. He went to a temple. He found a Taoist master, a shifu, and begged for help. He explained the envelope, the family, the dream. The master looked at David with pity. He explained that Minghun is a binding ritual. By picking up the envelope, David had accepted the betrothal gifts. The spirit of the girl now considered him her husband. If he did nothing, she would drain his young energy, his life force, until he joined her in the afterlife. "Is there a way out?" David asked. They had to burn a paper effigy of David, a dummy made of bamboo and paper, to trick the spirit into taking the fake husband instead of the real one. David had to offer burning incense, apology money, and food to the girl's tablet. He had to beg her for forgiveness. But on the 8th day, the air cleared. The heaviness in his chest lifted. The girl was gone. She had accepted the paper husband. David left Taiwan a month later. He couldn't handle the sight of red paper anymore. Every time he saw a Lunar New Year decoration or a red lantern, his heart would stop, even if it means stealing a life to do it. But look at the ground. If you see a wallet, return it. If you see a coin, leave it. But if you see a lonely, bright red envelope resting on the sidewalk, waiting for a hand to touch it, because in that envelope, there is no prize. There is only a promise. And until death do us part means something very different when the bride is already dead.